And in order to use German records effectively, you need to be able to read the German script and know some German words. But I like to tell people you don't need to be able to actually read the German. You just need to be able to read the letters, know the script, and know some of the German words. So the first thing you want to have when you're getting into the German records is you want to have your alphabet list, showing you the different fonts that were used, the different scripts that were used in Germany. So you have the modern, which everybody's familiar with the modern. You have the Fraktur, which is the calligraphy sort of version of the lettering, which is, fairly easy to read, but it's mostly in typed font, so that makes it easier. And then you have the Sütterlin, and then the current, and then the older handwriting styles. So what happened over time is that the lettering evolved. And so if you're looking at your church records, in the 1700s, you might be looking at current. In the early 1800s, you might be looking at Sutherland. In the mid 1800s, you might be looking at Fraktur. So you want to understand which lettering is being used during which time frame for these records that you're looking at. And so, if I look here, can anybody read this? How about that one? There's another one. And then there's another one. So the last one is the Fraktur. And you might be able to see that says German script can be hard to read. Well, every one of those above it says the same thing. All of those say German script can be hard to read. So if you're looking at that, would you have been able to read the three that are above that? And the answer is probably not. The E's look like N's. There's all sorts of different lettering that doesn't quite look like, the H's look like F's. So you have to understand the lettering that might be used. So what I like to do is use a Shrift Generator. And the Shrift Generator website that I have here shows you how a specific word looks in each of the different scripts. So in this case here, I wrote geboren. And geboren is the German word for born. And so if I'm looking for a record and I'm looking to see if somebody was born, this record is for their birth, I want to find the word geboren. Or if I want to know what their maiden name was when they got married, the female's maiden name, it usually has her first name, and then it says geboren, and then it has her last name. So there's one, you're looking at that word, and now you can key in what that word looks like in the text. And you also want to type in your names that you're looking for in the text. So in this case here, I'm looking for Augustine. And so I've included what Augustine looks like in all of the scripts. And I come across this record. And if you notice that in the left-hand column of it, it says Anna Maria Augustine. And then it has the information. So this is her baptismal record. I can see in here, fairly evident in the middle of the second line, it says April. Okay, at the top it says 1851. So I know that the baptism is probably in April. You look down a little further and it says Anna Maria. Okay, and I might have a little problem reading these, but then it says Johann Philipp Augustine. Okay, so I know that there's a Johann Philipp Augustine listed here. And then I see a Barbara Geboren West. Okay, so what I'm seeing here, it says und, right here is und, meaning and. So what I'm seeing here is that Johann Philipp Augustine und Barbara Geboren West, so Barbara West, are the parents of Anna Maria. Now, you have to go through the rest of these. There's a Philip Jacob, and this one here is a little bit harder to read, okay? But that first letter is an S. The second letter is an H. Okay, so this is S-H-E-O-T-T, I believe. And then you see another name down here. And so there's an Augustine here. Okay, Christina, geboren Augustine. So you're seeing these different names, Tobias here. So these are all of the witnesses to the baptism. And then it says 3 April 1851. So I'm not able to read all of this, but I'm able to pull out enough of the information to get an idea of what it says. Now, if you really want to get in and read all of this information, you can use some of the German translation or German transcription groups on Facebook. And they will, you can upload this to their Facebook group, and then they will give you a translation or a transcription, depending on what you're asking for. Now, there are online classes and webinars on German handwriting, and Family Search Learning Center has a variety of different classes on learning how to read German handwriting. So there's a 3-part German script lessons by Dr. Fritz Jungling on Family Search. And then there's a 10-part by Charlotte Noel Champenois on German paleography. And she's one of the family history missionaries at the Family History Library that specializes in German handwriting. So, by the time you get done with a 10-part series, you should be able to understand majority of the things that are written in these records. And when you start looking at the German genealogy research, the key words that you need, things like geboren, being born or the maiden name of, Taufen, the baptism or the christening, the confirmation, gestorben is died, Trauungen is the wedding, Beerdigungen is the funeral, Evangelisch are the Protestant and Katholisch are the Catholic records. So you're going to find, when you start getting into these records, you'll find the Taufen records, the Trauungen records, the Beerdigungen records. And if you don't know what those 3 words mean, you don't know what set of records you're looking at. So, if you're looking at the Taufen books, you're looking at the baptism books. If you're looking at the Trauungen books, you're looking at the wedding books, and so on. So here is a little text, okay? And when you look at that, what is that word? Well, that word is geboren. Actually, it's geborenen, but that's, again, the maiden name. So being able to recognize that text in context is helpful. You also need to know the German numbering system, because most of the time in the records, they will write out the word for the number as opposed to the number itself. So, you have eins, zwei, drei, vier, fünf, and so on. When you get to 10, it's zen, then elf, then zwölf. And then you get dreizehn. So drei is 3, zen is 10, 3, 10 is 13. You would get vierzehn is 14, and so on. Then you get to zwanzig, and zwanzig is 20. And then ein und zwanzig is 1 and 20. And dreizig is 30. Vierzig is 40. Fünfzig is 50. So I have a number here. And this number is ein und fünfzig. So ein is 1, und fünfzig is 50. So this is 51. Okay, so those are the sort of things you want to look for. I'm going to bump back to that church record here real quick. Notice that the numbers, the dates, and the names are underlined and the relationships are underlined. You'll often find that important information in the church records are underlined. And so those are the things you want to focus in on as you're doing your research. So the names definitely, in many of these records will have underlines so you can figure out. That's what I need to look at when I'm looking at the record. I don't have to read this record. I'm looking for a name. I'm looking for Anna Marie Augustine. I look at the underlined words. Oh, there's an Augustine there. Okay, who am I looking for? And I can see who the Augustine is because I'm looking at just those underlined words in many of these records. That's the quick and dirty way of going through them. Then you're going to need some words for times. Jahr for year, Monat is month, and Tag is day. Even in the United States, many of the Germans on their headstones in the cemeteries would have Jahr, Monat, Tag written on their headstones. And it would say how many years, how many months, how many days old were they at their time of death. In my case, my hometown newspapers were written in German up and through World War I. So I need to be able to find the words like Montag and Dienstag and Mittwoch to know what day of the week we're talking about when we look at these records. So here's an example of a day of the week. Now you probably can't read this, but this is Dienstag. So that first letter that sort of looks like I don't know, an L or an F or something is actually a D, and it's D-I-E. You can see the dot over the I, and then what looks like the N is an E. And then we have an S, and then that pop up is a T, and then you see an A, and then you see the pop down, which is the G. A lot of times when I'm looking at German words, I'm looking at the pop-ups and pop-downs to give me an idea of what word this probably is. And then I'm looking for the dots, umlauts or dots over the I's or something like that. Notice the T isn't crossed, okay? So you're looking at that up and down sort of motion of the word to see what that word might be. And then the months. The months are fairly easy to recognize. They look almost like our months, except for March, and May is MAI, but the rest of them are pretty close and easy enough to find when you're looking for them in the text. Another thing you want to do is, know how to translate these words. So if you're able to read them, you can then type them into Google Translate and get a translation. What I like about Google Translate is it gives you a couple options. So if you notice, I'm typing in geboren, and it's saying, is this geboren am, geboren werden, geboren sein, geboren in, and if you select those, then it helps you build that sentence. And you can keep building the sentences and get the information from it. Now, I've seen some people, complain about the German translations and some other translations in Google Translate because it's a literal translation. And so it might not quite make sense in all cases. But the other good thing about the German or the translations in Google Translate is you have the little speaker. And so if you want to know how it sounds, you can click speaker and it will read the words to you so you can see how they're pronounced. But there's another website called DeepL, DeepL.com. And this does a more natural translation of the German text than Google does. You can also translate files. So you can upload a doc file or a PowerPoint file or a text file, and it will translate those files for you. The free version has limits on the number of translations you can do per month. It's something like range of like 5, I think, per month. It might be 3, but it's fairly limited. But it still gives you some good translations. And the records can be found in various archives, churches, and other online databases. So in a lot of cases, you're going to be looking at the state or regional archives, the Landesarchives. And some of these archives have searchable or browsable records. Most of them are not indexed, though. So you'll have to search by the town, by the dates, and then go through those records to find what you're looking for. In order to find the right archives for you, you can just type in the region that you're looking for and Landesarchive in Google, and it'll pull up the sites. So I've provided 3 of them here for Baden-Württemberg, Berlin, North Rhine-Westphalia. Those are 3 archives that you could go to, and if you have family in those areas. If you want to learn more about the archives, the Family Search Wiki has information, and the Family History Guide also has more information on using archives in libraries. I get a lot of my research in the church records, from the German church records. So places like Matricula, which is the Catholic database. They're good for the northern and western part of Germany, and for the southern and eastern part of Germany. Austria, Switzerland, and other areas of German heritage are also included in there. There's a little section in the middle in Baden-Württemberg that the Catholic records are not yet online in Matricula. If you're looking for Lutheran or Protestant records, you want to work with Archeon. Archeon is a pay site, so you pay by the days or by the number of files that you want to download. Matricula is free. So Archeon specializes in Lutheran or Evangelisch records. However, they are starting to pick up some Catholic records. So you may find some Catholic records in there as you do your research. But then you also want to look at the state and regional archives. Again, you need to know the town that you're looking in order to get to the right locations. And Family Search, MyHeritage, and Ancestry are beginning to pick up a lot more German records that are available. On Family Search, many of those are restricted records for Germany, though. So you will have to go to a family history center or the family history library or an affiliate library in order to see those records. And, Family History Guide does give some information on church records that is helpful for you if you're in researching in those areas. Another German database that I like to use is Comgen, and this searches a variety of online German databases for your German ancestors. So Comgen is the German Genealogy Society's web page, and this is sort of like the US GenWeb or some of those pages that were very predominant in US research historically. This gives you things like address books, gravestones, mortality lists, World War I casualties. And if you look all the way to the right-hand side, it has meta search. You can go to the meta search and search multiple databases simultaneously. The OFBs, or the Orts family books, these are the books that are written with the family trees for the towns. So you may be able to find your ancestors in that town in an Orts family book. The interesting thing there is that since they've gone digital, people have been adding to them. And so you may find in the Orts family book your German ancestors, but then their children who migrated to the United States and their information about where they lived in the US and where they died in the US also. So it doesn't just specifically have the German stuff. It may expand out to where they immigrated to. So as a summary, you want to gather the information that you can find easily, the information your family has or that you have personally that you can put together. You want to critically evaluate the evidence to make sure that it matches up and it tells the story that you're looking for. If you have any things that conflict, you want to research those and figure out which ones are the right or which ones are the incorrect information. You want to research your ancestor and their family members to gather additional details to continue to build on that research so that you know that you're going in the right direction. And then you want to use various German record collections to increase the information that you can discover. Use the family or family books, the Orts family books. Use the church records. Use the state and local archives to gather the information that goes with the family. A lot of times when I'm in those records, I'm just going page by page, looking in the columns to find if the surnames are popping up, and then doing the research on that family group and seeing if they're in my family tree or I need to just add them with new information.